McLean,
Hello.
are you
There
there?
we go.
There, can you hear
There
me?
we go. Yeah.
Okay, good, man. Look at that hair. You're growing it
I
out.
know.
It's good to
I
see.
need a haircut.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Thanksgiving break.
Yeah. You're home?
Well, my parents moved to Cali. This is
Okay.
my first time going to Cali for home,
Yeah.
but I'm on break after this week. I'm leaving Saturday.
Nice. Where your parents live in Cali now?
Like 15 minutes from Sacramento.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice. That's interesting though. No coming home to Coppell. Where are you at school now?
University of Utah.
Wow. Oh, that's right. Hey, what was your defensive back doing last week when he dropped the ball on the goal line going into the end zone?
Oh no, that wasn't. We threw the pick.
Oh, you threw the pick. Okay.
Yeah, and then that happened. Washington's yeah,
That's what it
D.
was. Yeah, we were like, what that? We were watching that at a sports bar. We're like, what an idiot, you know?
We all started cheering, and then the very next play, we get a safety, and they
Yeah,
get the ball back.
I know. You're like, why did they do that? That didn't make any sense. Oh, oh well. How's school? What are you majoring in?
Business right now, and I'm not exactly sure. I think finance is what I'm going to go into, but
Yeah,
this year I'm just doing all my like core classes I require for business. So
yeah.
next year I get to pick my major.
Okay, cool. I see your boy Beltran at the core all the time.
Oh, Danny, I still
Yeah,
talk to him all the time. I
yeah,
talked to him, Santi, Carson.
yeah.
Did you Sean? You know Sean Simpson?
Sean, yeah, yeah. I had Sean in third period last year.
Yeah, I still talk to them for the most
Yeah.
part.
Nice, good man. Well, it's good to see you. It's funny. I got six full classes this year again, so it's like a whole bunch more kiddos, that are coming in here. This morning, for my class, I had Jay Thompson, Dave Gordon, and Ananya. They're doing and they're all at different schools, and so I was interviewing them about how their freshman year was going and stuff too. So it sounds like it's going good. I mean, are you are is school going good for you? Is it hard?
It's really not that bad. It's
Okay.
actually pretty easy. I like college for the most part.
Yeah.
And then
Nice.
Utah's a beautiful area too.
Right. What city are you
Uh,
in?
Salt Lake.
Salt Lake. Wow, you're in the big city then. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Go
yeah, we
Utes.
started going to walks.
Yeah. See, you're going on your walks, you're getting your steps in.
I
Good,
am.
Mr. McLean. That's good. You got to get those steps in. And see, we're Oregon fans, so that's your rival there. So
Oh, you're in oh.
I think Oregon beat Utah, didn't they? Yeah, we lost.
No, we didn't. I don't know if oh wait, we lost to Oregon State,
Okay.
but not Oregon.
Yep.
Oregon oh no, we did get whooped by Oregon. It was our game day.
Yeah.
We had college game day, we had everything here. We were so excited. I went to the game, it was freezing cold, and we
Yeah.
just get murdered. It
You
was
guys got
bad.
destroyed. It was bad. It was really bad. You should be embarrassed. Yeah.
was. I thought I was so excited for it too, and it was so disappointing. Like
Yeah.
from the very like we didn't have any good plays. From the very start, we were getting whooped.
Yeah. Oh man. It must be fun. Do you go to the football games and all that too?
Yeah, it is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, it's just a good area. The weather's really nice right now.
Yeah.
Perfect time for a walk. Ski season's about to start.
You gotta put a hat on your hair though. How do you do that? You don't mess up that beautiful hair.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've got a haircut.
Yeah. It looks like it. It looks like it's been since May at least. So yeah. Well, good man. It's good to hear from you. Or what you're do you have like a project on real estate or something? Is that what you're doing?
So we get to pick a domain, and I'm doing real estate slash property management for mine.
Yeah.
And then we had to interview, so I'm thinking Mr. Simpson's the perfect person to interview.
There you go. Hey, fire away. That's great. That's perfect.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, my first question is from like the very beginning, how did you like discover slash get into real estate and property management?
Yeah, really luckily. I mean, I when I graduated college, I went to apply for that job where I was the apartment manager in San Diego, and because all I wanted was free rent, I didn't really understand how real estate worked. Nobody had ever taught me. I knew I probably needed to buy a house at some point or whatever, but after a few months there, I just went into my boss's office and I was like, man, thanks so much for giving me this opportunity. I get free rent and all this kind of stuff. And he sat me down and he was like, no, you don't understand what's going on here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, you're doing all of the work. I am making all of the money. And I'm like, but I get $700 free rent per month. He's like, yeah, but I got 20 units at that complex and they're all generating $700 a month. And my mortgage on that property is like 3,000 a month. And you're making me 14,000 in gross revenue. And you just bring me the checks every month. It's wonderful. And I'm like, I'm sitting there going like, that's true, you know? And from that point, I think I really realized that like how real estate, how like other people paying could make you wealthy. I don't think it ever really dawned on me quite like that. I think I probably figured there was some financial incentive to want to rent real estate to people, but I don't think I ever realized like how profitable it could be. You know, and he's like, I bought that property for 370,000. It was distressed. It was at a bad time in the market. And now it's worth 1.5. So he's like, so thank you again. And he goes, on top of that, you know, he goes, I don't have to pay any taxes on it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't have to pay any taxes. He's like, he goes, first of all, I can depreciate the property. Started walking me through. He's like, secondly, I got a bunch of write-offs. I'm going to the Bahamas next week and I'm going to have a corporate meeting there about that property and I'll get to write off my whole trip. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you don't understand how corporations work. And I'm like, no. And so he basically gave me a bunch of things like, here are 5 books. You need to just go read. You need to go like, you know, and then when you come back next month with your rents, let's have another conversation. And I said, done, you know. And the next month I went there and he wasn't there, but his secretary was there and she's like, he really wants to talk to you, so next month when you come again. So I read some more and I came back and I would just pepper him with questions. I'd be like, you know, well, what do you think I should do? And he's like, you should move. He's like, you're never going to get ahead in San Diego. Are you out of your mind? You've missed the market here. It's way too expensive now. And it's never going to be the prices where I bought it at. He's like, you need to move to the Midwest. You need to move to like Kansas City, somewhere like that. And so a few years later, when my company offered me the transfer to Chicago, they offered me Baltimore, or they offered me Texas. And looking at real estate, I remember going online to realestate.com or whatever the very basic of real estate stuff was, and seeing that I could buy a house in Keller, Texas. I didn't even know where that was, but Keller, Texas for $85,000. And I'm thinking that sounds like a pretty good deal because the school district was a really highly rated and rents were okay there. So I moved to Keller, Texas, bought my first house when I was 27. And then that same year, I bought 2 more rental properties that year. And I kept emailing him back and forth and telling him like, hey, you know, cause he's like, you need to move somewhere cheap. You need to buy rental properties. 322s. He goes, I got started. It's like Monopoly. You buy 4 houses and they trade them in for a hotel. He's like, you get 4 houses, trade them in for an apartment complex through a 1031 exchange. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And he's explaining to me what a 1031 exchange is. I'm like, oh my gosh, like people should know this. Like this is stuff people should know. And he's like, yeah, but this isn't taught anywhere in school. And so that was kind of like my introduction to real estate, and also my like, I don't know, like maybe my life's calling, you know, or like I always wanted to be a teacher. I thought that would be cool. But you know, I didn't realize that, you know, it would probably affect so many people. I mean, I've got kids, you know, every week that are texting me saying, you know, hey, I want to buy this house, or, you know, I want to make this, I want to go into this market or that market. And I'm like, awesome. So like, hopefully impacting kids to get ahead financially.
You like kind of talked about one of my like questions I had for you, and that's
Yeah.
about location.
Mm.
What aspects of like a location do you look at to make it like a good entry for it, or like a prime location
Yeah.
for looking for a house?
Well, it's tough because the really prime locations everybody wants, and they want to live in those locations. The problem is that, like a Coppell, for instance, too expensive. You could not. I live by a 1% rule, and the 1% rule is you've got to be able to rent the property for 1% of the price of the property. So let's say, for instance, the property is $200,000. I have to be able to rent that property for at least 2 grand minimum, because with PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, with maintenance, with management fees, all of that, I've got to find properties that can meet that. So like here in Dallas Fort Worth, it's not going to be Coppell, it's not going to be Plano, it's not going to be Trophy Club, it's going to be Bedford, it's going to be Hearst, It's going to be Arlington. It's going to be Mesquite. It's going to be areas that are very blue collar. It's going to be areas where people make the national average. They don't make 180,000 a year. They make 70,000 a year. And they need a place to rent. I saw a thing the other day that showed like the average American these days is $40,000 to $50,000 making too small amount to be able to afford the average house. And that's the truth. And that's not 20 years ago. It wasn't that way. The average income was 40,000. Somebody could buy $120,000 house and qualify for it just fine. Nowadays, that's not the case. So you're pushing a lot more people into renting. And when you push a lot more people into renting, they can't afford Coppell. They can't afford, some of these areas that we're looking at. Carrollton, even there are some of these. So they're looking at like kind of fringe areas, and not that they're bad areas. It's just the school districts aren't super highly rated. Like you don't want 8 out of 10 in the school district ranking. Like it's just, you just wouldn't be able to rent the house for what it's worth. You want school districts that are like 6 out of 10 or 5 out of 10, something like that, that are average communities. So like our house, we sold our house in Trophy Club this summer and we bought another house. And the problem was that my wife and I were like, all right, let's not sell our house, let's rent it. Well, the problem with that is the house is worth 650,000, but we can only rent it for 3,500 a month. Like that isn't even half of 1% rule. That is like that's not going to work. And so we went back and forth to our financial planner. And I was telling my wife this. We were going back and forth, and I love her and don't let her see this, but we were going back and forth. I was explaining to her, like, it doesn't meet the 1% rule. It doesn't make any sense to hold on to this property. We have an opportunity right now to sell and to buy, and we need to buy with our new house with the sale off our old house. That makes most financial sense. Lower our monthly payment, all that stuff. And we go into our banker, and I explained to him, I didn't try to persuade him one way or the other, but I'm like, the house is worth 650. We can only rent it for 3,500. And I just start going in line. He's like, well, that doesn't meet the 1% rule. And I'm like, I'm just trying to be quiet. My wife's like, I know you already said that. Okay, whatever. And it's like, okay, well, that's what you want to look for. Like for us, when I look for rental properties, I'm looking for properties that are like here in the Dallas Metroplex DFW area. I'm looking for 179. I'm looking for 205. I'm not looking for 480. That's just way too hard to rent that property. And when you buy a smaller place, it's sort of like a pyramid. The more people on the bottom, the more people it can apply to, the more people can afford it. When you go up the ladder up to South Lake and to Westlake and all these areas, there's only a small fraction of people who could afford that house. And so you play to the masses down here. And that's really what I look for. I look for, even if it's 2-bedroom, 1 bath, I don't care. If it's 105,000, but I can rent it for 1,400 a month, that works. Like I'm not really particular. I am particular about condos where if a condo has exclusivity contracts or HOAs that are really restrictive, where they say like, only 22% of the condo can be rented and the rest has got to be owner occupied. Well, then that's a problem because what if they already have the 22% and I go buy a condo there and I can't rent it out? The HOA board won't let me. That would not be good. So I like a 322. I like a 2-1. I like a 2-2. I like any of that. I like all of them under 200,000. When people send me properties, they're like, hey, I got this property for 317. Not interested. Like if it's under 200, you got my interest, then I'll go down the road with you a little bit. But usually there's something along the line that I don't feel like is perfect about that house too. So like I'm kind of a fancy pants when it comes to like, I want it just the way I want it,
Yeah. Then have you looked in any other locations besides Texas that you think like the market's up and coming and is a good investment?
Yeah, and that's a really tricky thing because Texas is it's a real gunslinger kind of state. You basically in Texas can you can evict a tenant within like 21 days. It's pretty quick. It's very landlord friendly. It's not tenant friendly. And that's great for me. That's not great for the renter. And I explained that to the renter when I don't have a property. I might have a property management company now, but back when I would do it, I would explain to them, you are living in a state where if you don't pay and it's the 4th of the month, you are going to get a 3-day notice. And by the 7th, if you have not paid, I am filing for eviction. You're going to pay $250 in court costs. You're going to pay the late fee, and you're going to pay the rent that you owe, or we're going to go to eviction. And I won't stop until I get all of those funds, because I don't want you paying late every month. That's a pain in the neck. All of the resources are on my side. I've got attorneys to back me up. I've got all this to help me out. I'm in a state that is going to protect the landlord. It's not going to protect the tenant. Now, you may say that's not really a very fair system. I'm not here to make the rules. I just play by the rules. To give you an example, we had employees here in Texas for Triumph Sports, my sports camp company. And we went over to Atlanta to add programs in Atlanta. Well, Atlanta is much more of a liberal state. It just is. They didn't vote for Trump, or Georgia didn't vote for Trump in 2020 or whatever. So it's more left leaning. And because they have more left leaning policies, to hire somebody and to fire somebody in Atlanta is an incredibly cumbersome procedure. However, in Texas, to hire and to fire somebody, it's an at-will state. It's very easy to do business here, which is why a lot of people from California have moved from California to Texas. Toyota, Tesla, Staples, all these major companies. It's like you get all the landlord laws, you get cheaper real estate for your particular buyer, you get much more protection when it comes to a corporation to dealing with employees. And so I have not dipped my toe in other states. I'm always a little bit leery about what the eviction process might be, what the different laws are. I'm also not interested in managing my own properties. And so I would have to get a property management company, which is fine. I have one here, but my property management company in Dallas-Fort Worth won't service outside of DFW. Like Burleson is as far as they're going to go. Rockwall, far as they're going to go. They're not going to go to Sherman. They're not going to go to Weatherford. It's just too far. So like, I want to play, like, to me, I think you play within your wheelhouse. You don't, you go for the low hanging fruit. You don't need to climb the tree all the way to the top to find an apple. You find the ones around the bottom. And so I am constantly saying, I want properties around me, around here, because I can, my property management company, I trust them. I know what they do. They're great at what they do. And I don't know that I want to go trust some other entity out there and have to manage them or whatever. And today is the 15th of the month, which is amazing. It's the 15th. It's awesome. That's the day I get paid. All my real estate is paying me today. I've got 5 rental properties. They're all paying. I love the 15th of the month. My tenants, they hate the 1st of the month because they got to pay, and that's the thing, is like, you can be on one side of the inflation or you can be on the other side of the inflation. I want to be on the right side of the inflation.
So you were talking about tenants, and before you got like your own property management to like kind of run it for you,
Yeah.
did you have like any problems previous when you had to run it with tenants?
Yeah. How much time you have? I mean, I had a million problems with tenants. I probably went to eviction court about a dozen times. And thankfully, I was a college debater. And so I'm fearful of public speaking, but the better thing for me is that I was prepared. I would go to those eviction courts and I was 12 out of 12. And the reason is because, number one, my tenant didn't show up. And so it was like a default win. But secondly, because I followed all the procedures to a T, I had an attorney that was a real estate attorney, Todd too. I think you may remember his interview, but like Todd too, like walked me through the process of like, make sure that you follow these steps, because if you haven't, and that the Tarrant County Appraisal District, or the Tarrant Justice of the Peace, it's that is sort of like a kangaroo court. That person who's the justice, who's the judge, doesn't even have to have a law degree. They don't even know the law. But they do know that if you don't follow these 5 steps, they can reject. And if they reject, they can give that tenant 30 more days. And if the tenant would just show up, if the tenant showed up and said, I didn't pay, but, I lost my job, or my son got sick, or whatever, if they gave almost any excuse, the judge would probably give them another 30 days. But most people just know, I didn't pay, I'm going to get evicted. And that's what's going to happen. And so now I don't have to follow through. I didn't have to go knock on the door to get them out. The courts would get them out that way for me. But you get like, I hated all the dumb calls. Like, I just hated it. Like, they were calling me and be like, the toilet's broken, or, hey, a holiday falls on Monday, which is the 3rd. Can I still pay you on the 4th? And you're like, oh my gosh, you hate that kind of stuff. Like, you should have paid on Friday. They're like, well, I don't get paid till Friday, and it's too hard to get you. Like, whatever. Tuesday is fine, or whatever. Like, that's fine. So like, some of that stuff was, you just kind of deal with it. And like my wife, when we first got married in 2009, I'd owed rental properties for 9 years at that point, or 7 years at that point. And our first rental property, we had somebody that was moving out and they left the property and they left it just, I mean, awful, like in a horrendous state. And my new bride is walking through this house with like tears coming down her face, like, I can't believe they treated the property like that. And I'm like, babe, it is an investment. Like this is, we don't live here. This isn't, they're not like, messing up our living room. This is a rental property living room. I said, this will take us about $3,000 to turn this property around. You got to look at it like dollar signs. And the new tenant moving in is going to pay us first. They're going to pay us last. They're going to pay us deposit. They'll get the 3,000. We'll get the 3,000 back from the new tenant. She's like, and the tenant moving out, I'm like, I'm not giving you anything. Are you out of your mind? Like the way you left this property, I categorize things. And I even said, if you make one peep, I'm going to go after you for excessive damages. And you take me to court. Come on, let's go. Because when you do, I'm going to go after you and you're going to end up paying way more than that $800 deposit. You're going to end up paying all $3,000. And they were just like, whatever. And then I never heard from them again. And so the new tenant moved in, we got our 3,000, it made us whole. We were fine. My wife, like, she just was like, you can't look at this as an emotional state. You can't look at this as like the tenant is attacking me as a person. The tenant is just doing what they do. I had a tenant just a few years ago before I got the property management, probably one of the reasons why I got the property management company, who they annoyed the crap out of me. I mean, they were just annoying. They were super annoying, always calling about dumb stuff. Well, come to find out when they moved out, they had a dog and they aren't allowed to have a dog. I had no way am I gonna have a dog. Not only do they have a dog, but they left the property like just completely like we require a cleaning of the property, which we're gonna do. It's gonna come out of their deposit. So they didn't even attempt to clean anything on their way out. It was a mess. And when I went in there, there was one of the bedrooms where there was a pile of dog poop. And they're like, we didn't have a dog. I'm like, are you kidding? I like took a picture of the dog poop and I sent to them. I'm like, you had it, unless this is your son doing this is a dog poop right here, and he's just like, well, it was a rescue and they were going to put the dog down and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I love dogs, but I do not care. You have signed a lease agreeing to this. You will get nothing back from your deposit. You have violated the lease. And he's like, I'm going to take you to court. When you deal with that kind of stuff, you're like, take me to court. My attorney is Todd too in Southlake. He's undefeated. I'm undefeated at court. Let's go. And I will go after you for additional expenses. And so after that, I was like, I've just had enough. And like, because the laws change year after year, I would just rather have, and I could afford it. I could afford to have a property management company. That to me was just a lot better. But there was a couple of times where like a tenant left a property and they left it in disarray. And like there was like an altercation between the husband and wife or something. I don't know what happened, but they like broke the door was broken. So it was like just all these excessive costs. And then they rode me all the way up until the sheriff came to evict them. So they owed rent and damages and all this kind of stuff. And I took the deposit out of there. And Todd was like, after you file this eviction, you might want to go next door over there and file a lien against them. And what that is that if they ever go try to buy a house someday or buy a car or anything, this lien is going to be on their credit and they can't access their credit without paying off the lien. 90% of the time, these people never pay this. They find a way out of it. It expires, whatever. I think the lien was like $1,700. And 3 years later, Jessica and I were just married. I was 2009 or 2010, somewhere in there. I get a call from the tenant. Hey, how are you? Remember me? Yeah, things are better now. I got remarried. My life's turned around. I'm so thankful. Praise the Lord. They always like to throw Christian stuff in there just because they know I'm a Christian and like all this kind of stuff. And she's like, it would really help us if you could sign this thing to release us from that lien. That would be really, really great. And I'm like, absolutely not a chance of doing that. So you're going to be paying that. That was money out of my pocket. And she's like, well, what if we went half? What if we paid half? I said, I will not sign any document that is not the full amount of that document. You left me in disarray. And she's like, was my ex-husband a jerk and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, I am like impervious to like stories. Like you can tell me the greatest stories ever, and I don't. My skin is so thick right now that I don't ever believe anybody. So you might be telling me the truth. I don't care. This is what's going to be paid. The moment I get that check and it clears, or you send me a money order and you send the document with it and it's cleared, I will send it back to you and you'll be good to go. And they were like, all right. And so, 4 months into my marriage with Jessica, we get a check for $1,700. And it's like, and Todd, my attorney, was just like mesmerized. He's like, I can't believe it. Like, these people never pay. It's like, that never happens, Simpson. Don't think that's ever going to happen. I'm like, well, I guess we got lucky, but I have not been to eviction court since 2007. And that's just because we've gotten better tenants. We've screened better. We just, no, I take that back. We had one guy in 2018. That's right. And that was handled, it was all handled by us, but that was prior to the property management company, but that was the only one. And that's pretty good. But that was also a lot of financial upheaval between 2004 and 2009. The market was really crazy with all of the, all the stuff that was going on in the recession.
Yeah.
People were losing their jobs and all of that. So, yeah.
I have just a few more questions
Sure.
kind of about like the early stages, since I'm
Yeah.
in college, and obviously after college I would like to buy a house and get
Yeah.
into real estate.
As you should.
Yeah. Could you like just kind of explain the process of getting your first house and then some of the mistakes that you made within that kind of time range?
Yeah. Well, first of all, get your degree. And in order for you to be able to buy a house, you got to have an engine for income. And the engine for income is your JOB. And if that's going to be your first engine that you're going to have. Now you're going to acquire other ways to have streams of income, but your engine's got to be there. Secondly, you've got to stay out of debt. Whatever, student loans, credit cards, stay away from them as much as you possibly can. If you can work while you're in school, if you can work over summers or whatever you can do to not have any student loans. I have this last year, I put this sign up in my classroom, and these are these steps. Oops.
What's a new sign?
It's a new sign, and it's the steps to buying your first house when you're 22. Number one, you got to have an income. Number two, you got to have a credit score. Number three, you got to be debt free. And so keep your debt score down. Number four, you need to have reserves. So do you have a Roth IRA or some kind of a trading account right now?
I trade on Robinhood.
Okay, so you have Robinhood. Great.
Yeah.
So you need between now and 22, you need $15,000 in there.
Okay.
So whatever you have to do that, if that's $100 a month, if that's and work backward. Don't say, oh, I'll never get to 15,000. It's like, okay, I've got 3 years and I need, $10,000 or whatever. And so that means I need $3,000, 3,300 a year, which means I need, 300 a month. Or if I'm going to work over the summer, I can put more in there during that time, whatever. You need $15,000 that's sitting somewhere that is just showing that you're a responsible person. I have 15 grand sitting over here in this account, and I've saved it, and I've acquired that money. You need also about 10,000 for a down payment, potentially. Not always. Some loans are going to be FHA, Fair Housing Administration, which allows you to buy with 0 down or 5% down, which is amazing. And that's the next thing you need to do. You need to have some kind of down payment money because there's going to be closing costs. There are going to be other things like that. And what you can't do is roll all of that into the house, and then the house doesn't appraise for what the loan is. So let's make it simple. Let's say it's a $100,000 house and you have $8,000 worth of closing costs. You can't go and say, I want to buy the house for $100,000 because you're barely going to be, it's worth 100 and you're buying for 100. So right there, the appraisal is going to be like you don't got any margin for error. But back in the day, they would allow me to go up to 108,000 to buy the house and roll the closing costs in there. And that just doesn't always have. So you need about 10 grand on the side for potential down payment, whether that cover closing costs, that down payment, all that kind of stuff. Let me think. What was the other one? And you got to be thinking roommates. You got to be thinking, I need 2 friends who are bad with finances because they're not going to be buying a house anytime soon. And they are going to be my renters. and you can't use their rent in getting approved for the loan. But once you have that loan, let's say your mortgage payment is $2,000 a month, each of those roommates will pay you $800 a month to rent from you, which is fantastic. They'll pay you the majority of your mortgage. It's a housing hack. Don't think you have to go thirds into this thing. That's not the way this works. I own the house. The rent on that room is $800 a month. And if you want to rent it, great. If not, then I'll find some stranger off the streets to rent it from me. Credit checks and all that kind of stuff. You do all of that as well. But you want to get to a position where people are paying to make you wealthy, whether that be they rent the whole house or they rent rooms out from the house. That pays to make you wealthy, and you take all of that money and you put it aside for your next house. You have to live in the house 1 year to get occupancy, and when you're in there for 1 year as occupancy, you can then get another loan, another FHA for 5% down or 0% or whatever they're approving for, and you can move into that one and stay there for 1 year. And you can bring your roommates with you. You can say, look, Larry and Timmy, you come with me to my new house and I'll give you the first months for free. And you keep them there and you keep them renting, and you rent the house that you were in before out from under yourself. That's why you don't want a big house. You want cheap. You want the bottom of the pyramid. You want every blue collar person across the planet that can rent from you. And I think that's the way you do it. But the problem is that people get into debt. People don't save. And for me, I didn't buy my first house till I was 26 because I graduated with 17,000 in student loans. I graduated with 6,000 in credit card debt. I leased a car out of college. Oh my gosh, so many stupid things. Like if you have a car that's paid off, do not buy another new car. Just keep it and drive it till it literally dies on you. Because when you go to the bank and you have no debt and you've got money aside, all of that, the bank's gonna be like, wow, this is great. This is the kind of risk we want to take here. I would recommend that you get a credit card with maybe like a $500 limit on it. You cannot spend more than $500, and once a month you go buy Chick-fil-A with it, and then you pay it off, and you don't rack anything up on that thing, just to help build your credit, just so that you'll have that 700, 800 credit score when you go to get financed. Those are all vital to have.
Well, thank you so much. That was the last question I had.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to say thank you for last year. The class really helps. It got me into investing and everything. I don't know if I ever thanked you for that at the time, but I do really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's great having you in class, and it's fun every year to see kids and they come back and they're, here's where I'm at in my financial journey, Mr. Simpson. I'm ready to, I'm 2 years away from buying my house, or I'm 1 year away from buying my house. And, the way rents are going, it's going to get more expensive. And if people could just get ahead, but people don't want to live in Euless, people don't want to live in, crappy, I don't say like Euless is crappy, but I'm like, coming from Coppell, it's hard to come down to a neighborhood that doesn't have what you have. You live in a bubble. I live Trophy Club. I live in a bubble. My kids are, have a silver spoon in their mouth, and they just are never gonna, they don't have to fight their way out of that. And we want them to understand that when you graduate, you need a $200,000 house. You need a $175,000 house, like somewhere that's not particularly great, but it's going to be good enough for the time being. So if you want, I'm recording this. I'm happy to convert it and put it on YouTube and send you the link if you need it for class or something.
Oh yeah, I saw that you're recording. If you could send me that and put it on YouTube,
that's just great. That's my settings I have. I didn't even realize settings that I have for school. Because I interview people. This year, I think I've interviewed 25 parents. I made all the kids this year tell me in an opening questionnaire, like, do your parents own real estate, rental properties? Do your parents have their own small business? Do your parents work in the financial sector, like Fidelity? And today we had Varsha's mom she works for Fidelity. Mehek's mom the other day, she owns like 5 rental properties. And so I interviewed her, Dasani, and just different ones. And so it's great to hear from these parents. And every one of them, when I ask them, when someone graduates and they have money and they don't have debt, should they buy at 22 or should they wait till they're 32? And every one of them is like, buy. They all say buy. And the other thing is that the best time to buy a house is 5 years ago, all the time. So the longer you wait, the worse it gets. Like, I understand interest rates are not great or whatever, but like, people just don't understand. Like, if you would have bought in 2018, your house would be like worth like 70% higher than it is now. Like, Index funds are wonderful, but they do not give you that kind of return, especially if you have roommates. Oh my gosh, like so great, right? So yeah. Well, McLean, man, it's good to see you, buddy.
Thank you so,
You
so
keep
much.
plowing away
Glad to
there
see
in
you.
Salt Lake City and doing your thing and all that. And send me a text or whatever. Keep in touch. Let me know if there's somebody, if I can redirect you to somebody or help you out in one way or another, I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, I'll probably have some more questions coming up, and I'll text you if I ever need
Awesome.
information or input.
Yeah. You got my number. Do so. All right. All right, buddy. You
Thank
stay
you so
warm
much.
out there. I'll talk to you later.
Bye. Have a great day.
You too.